Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Madcapper and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends and another in our series of I Built Them So You Don't Have To. Today we're going to talk about the new latest login champion that I just finally got enough fragments for to get. It is the epic champion from Nice Revenant, Lady Eresh. So without further ado, let's take a look at Lady Eresh. Blur of Knives attacks all enemies, has a 20% chance of granting an extra turn. If an extra turn is not granted, fills this champion's turn meter by 10% for each living enemy instead. Deathrite Evocation places a 50% increased attack buff and a 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for 3 turns, then grants an extra turn. Meticulous Adversary attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 25% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. Flip Between passive places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns whenever their HP drops below 50%. Alright, let's take a look at how I've built out Lady Eresh. First off, I have her in Savage and Speed gear, just to get some speed on her, and obviously for that extra damage. She is a nuking champion. HP 34, almost 35,000, 5346 attack, speed at 175, 251 crit damage. We do have some accuracy at 193. Not really building her for accuracy, it's just a happy accident for the weekend here. The biggest thing about her is she does have this perfect veil to help prevent her from getting killed when she's lower HP. She does increase her crit damage, increase attack, which is really nice for that boost of damage. And then has this extra turn, or 20% to get an extra turn, or gets the champion's turn meter by 10% for each living enemy. So it is an opportunity with this ability to get her to use extra turns, even though she has the lower speed, which is a nice thing as well. For her masteries, pretty standard. Went down nuking and was always want that retribution. So nothing special or new or crazy there. That's how I usually build my champions. Some are close. Sometimes I make some slight changes. All right, this time I want to do some damage testing with her. We're going to bring her in against some other champions of similar ilk to see what she can do for damage versus them. And then we'll take her into a team. I think we'll see what kind of team we can put together just to see what kind of help she can be in dungeon waves, that sort of thing. So let's first head over to the damage testing. All right, so here's the damage testing we're going to do. We bring in Venus to debuff, and then we have several different champions that kind of fit, in my opinion, a similar role to her. I like bringing my Whisper in because I just recently did a video. She is the hidden gem of the world, more on the boss than the actual waves, but it'll give you an idea of some of the single target damage she can do. That extra turn may come into play, so we're just going to play it out and see how that happens. Also, Magnar, he's got 2 single target, 1 AoE, and Alika, 1 AoE, 2 single target as well. So very similar to Lady Eresh. Now, Lady Eresh also has the self buff, so we're gonna make sure to be using that because that's part of her kit. She deserves to use that. She's only got the one ability that buffs, and then of course the single target and the AoE. So we'll test this as best we can, keeping in mind that she has 1 less attack, so that's kind of a detriment to her, but nonetheless, let's first get those debuffs off. All right, so she's got the single buff and attacks. That's what makes her so strong, is that she gets to attack as she buffs herself. Here she's putting the buff and then getting an extra turn, which means she's got to go to an AoE or a single target. So if we're just going to do single target, does 100,000, really good numbers. He doesn't have any buffs, so we'll do his AoE3 here. We'll do it over here, 112, and we'll do her single target, 141. So let's back out and kind of show you. I know here's the thing, we don't have that A3 to show with her, so she would be using her A1 here, and obviously because of that she lags behind slightly, but not that bad. Her damage is actually pretty freaking strong if you look at how much damage she's doing compared to the others. Now let's bring her in and we'll do the AoE damage. We'll see how that goes. Now the thing about Whisper, she always has to use this first because of how she's built to get her ability. So I'm going to use that and then we might circle back. So here's her AoE. Here's his AoE. And she's actually going to kill people, so we're not going to get a true account of her AoE here. So we might have to go through twice on this, unfortunately. So you see she did 327, 625. Not even close. Magnar is far ahead. But we're actually going to go Lady Eresh and Alika here. We're going to take out Magnar just for this one turn. We're going to take out Whisper. I just want to test these two. You know I've done lots of Alika videos. I think she's one of the best epic champions in the game for nuking. So this would be a really good... well, I mean, it's the weekend, but it's on both of them. So she's going to do her this, and then boom. And then she's just going to go full AoE. All right, let's see the difference here. 433, 295. So in this case, Lady Eresh actually out-damaged Alika, which is an interesting thing. Alika hits really hard. Obviously Alika's A1 or A3, which hit for 145, actually killed the champion more than it was showing on the final. So Alika's better. Alika has A1, hits really hard. Lady Eresh does better on the AoE. Pretty good, I would say, in the comparison. And then we'll do one more, and that's just the A1 comparisons. Recently used first. We'll bring in Magnar. We'll bring in Ethos for the A1 test here, just to kind of give you an idea. So his A1 does 89,000. Oh, of course he gets an extra turn. Okay, and she gets to buff herself. We've already seen her A1 in action, but let's do it again. There, about 100,000. Magnar's A1, 71. And then Alika's A1, 46. Keeping in mind that Alika has a 50% chance for that second hit. So when you look at this, the normalized, I would say normalized damage, she's not bad. She's actually a really good damage dealer. I'll show you everyone's gear in a minute here, but when you consider he did 2 hits, so that's like 78. So she's actually the hardest hitting out of all of them for the A1 because she's always hitting twice. She can also place a weaken, which we haven't specifically built her for, but she does have a 25% chance to place that weaken as well. And when you look at it, so Alika would hit similar if she got her 50-50 chance. So that's, you know, like I said, it's a 50-50 chance. So either she's going to hit half or she's going to hit the same. Lady Eresh hit way harder on her A2, mainly because she's buffing her crit damage and attack. That's a big deal. And then on the A3, she doesn't have an A3. Alika does, and Alika's A3 hits harder than Lady Eresh's A1 would to kind of normalize it out. So really, when you consider their damage over a run, that might be quite similar, but there's one way we can figure that out. What I'm going to do, and I've done this in previous videos, I'm going to run all 3 of them in Dragon 25 in that spare slot. If they die, they die. That's part of the whole thing, but at least that way we can get an idea of what kind of damage they're doing against the dragon and see if it really makes a difference on what they're hitting versus each other. So let's do that right now. All right, we're going to try this a little bit different. Normally I would throw them in with the team I normally use in Dragon. The problem is with nukers like this, you're not really taking a look at the wave, and both Alika and Lady Eresh they're wave nukers, right? So they need to have that part of their toolkit to really shine. So we're going to try this out and just see what kind of damage. It also gives us a chance to see a Cupidus, albeit he is a toned down Cupidus because I have him built for Hydrus, who's got a little bit more survivability, and he's got some additional skills in his toolkit. Did she not use her AoE? Did she start with her AoE even though she wasn't buffed yet? That's interesting. That's a good to know. Oh, good. I'm glad you used that. That was really useful. Go. We're just gonna see what kind of damage numbers she puts up compared to some of the others. I've never tested this team out. This is the first time, so I don't know what kind of thing it'll do. It won't be a speed run, but I mean, geez, Cupid is Venus together nowadays is just silly. And you add to that the fact that Chris survivability, and then Tomb Lord's gonna just speed up that dragon a little bit. I usually don't farm Dragon 25, to be honest. I farm Dragon 24, and I use a team of well, that's 114. She did get the extra attack that time, so that's nice. Puts herself under Veil, which is good. Ally protection, will it be enough? I don't think so. I think she's gonna die here. Yeah. I should have brought in a healer instead of Tomb Lord. So 153, she did do 2 million. She died at the very end there. I think she might have gotten one extra hit in had she not died. Let's try this team again. This time we're going to put in recently used. Boom. This time let's put in Whisper to see if there's a big difference between the two. Whisper's going to do obviously a lot less during the waves. She's a pure passenger here. She can do lots of damage, and if she gets extra turns like this and pops off. Oh my god! How many extra turns you going to get, girl? Okay, never mind. She's not going to be a passenger. She doesn't want to be displaced, obviously. There is an inherent danger with her extra turns because she runs through the shield that Chris gives her, but an ally protection there feels bad. I think Whisper was the star of this show. Jesus. Those extra turns can be very bad for her. We got the taunt, so that's going to help her. There we go. Okay, so let's see. Definitely slower getting to the boss. And that's just the lack of AoE damage. But look at that, 169. The amount of damage she can do on bosses is staggering. And keep in mind, this is not the same build as when I put her through in her own video. I've had to beef up her HP and her resistance because I was trying her in a comp for Hydra. A very special comp that hopefully I'll get a video out. That's actually why I've been without a video for a week, is because I've been really pushing to try to get that one out. And unfortunately, it just hasn't been happening for me. But hopefully we'll get that video out for you this week as well. Whether or not it has Whisper in it remains to be seen. So a little bit slower, 2.9, so she did another million. So there's your reference point. She still just does so much more damage. But let's throw Alika in there now, and I'll show you right afterwards. I'll compare the nuking numbers just so you have an idea. But we want to see over the long term, can Alika hold up to that 2 million that Lady Eresh did? I'm actually pleasantly surprised by Lady Eresh. The good news is it appears that she's a pretty good nuker. The downfall is you're going to be playing a game for a year before getting her, which does make it a little bit more difficult to justify. By the time you get her, you'll probably have better nukers. That said, a free Knights Revenant, one of the hardest faction wars in the game, may not be the worst case scenario. Whether she can handle the Knights Rev run with all those Valkyries, she's Force Affinity, may not be the best, but it's better than nothing. It's one of those better than nothing case scenarios, so it'd be interesting to see. We'll definitely see. We're getting much quicker to the dragon than we did with Whisper, just because of the AoEs. But this is where it really matters, is what can she do for damage here. Her A3 is going to hit, ignoring some defense, so that's a big deal. AoE is obviously less. 184, like that's, she's doing some damage on that boss. Oh, and she did get the 50% chance for a double attack. She might be beating out Lady Eresh in this one. We'll see. We'll see what the final number is. Her AoE is the one that really leaves behind. But she gets an extra attack, right? Lady Eresh, or an extra A3 attack, like a big attack. 1.5 though, there you go. So Lady Eresh actually out damaging Alika. Now, well, let me show you what the different builds were. We already looked at Lady Eresh's, but just as a review for you, you had 251, 103, 53, 46. Those are the three numbers that you need to be concerned with, both in Savage, by the way, both in Savage and Speed, oddly enough. And you got 242, 53, 18. So very similar numbers here. And what I saw was Lady Eresh just out damaging Alika, which is nice because she is 9 books or 10 books, not 18. So I think you have a Force Affinity champion, probably free to play. I'm thinking if you're spending, you're probably not going to need her, but she's nothing special, but she is something that you can use. Let's go to final thoughts, and we'll wrap up the video for you today. So let's head over to final thoughts. My final thoughts on Lady Eresh. I really like her. There's a good and bad to her. First of all, I like that her kit's straightforward. There's no over-the-top gimmicky. She hits very hard. She's self-buffing, gives an extra turn. She hits really hard with this. This is a very strong AoE skill, especially for a free epic. And then her A1 actually was one of the harder hitting A1s I've tested among epics. It might be the hardest hitting A1. I think Phoenix might argue that, and there's a couple that have some conditionals that make them hit harder. But just for hey, I get to hit twice, she doesn't even need to land the weekend in order for this to be a very, very hard-hitting A1 that hits twice, so very strong skill. This passive, a little bit gimmicky, but I do like the fact that it gives her some extra survivability. So from the perspective of just looking at a champ, I think she's a decent champ that you can use and build out in this game. Now for the bad news. The bad news is she's a login champion that you'll get, a year and a half, a year and 3/4 into the game. Unless you are free to play with some very bad luck, chances are you've already got nukers in all affinities that you can use in various situations. So if you were that unlucky or you just didn't have that force one, maybe she'll be useful for you. But the reality is, I don't think she has the type of kit that's going to replace some of the champions you already have in place from having played the game for as long as you have. From that perspective, I think Lady Eresh loses a lot of her usability just because of that notion. Furthermore, while Knights Revenant could have easily used more epic nuking champions, especially one with a variety of kit that you can build to be a little bit more survivable than, for example, your Skull Crown, makes her a force to be reckoned with. However, they made her Force Affinity, which makes her very unusable versus Knights Revenant 21, where you've got 2 Martyrs, 3 Valkyries over 2 waves to deal with, and she's absolutely going to be anemic at best at that because she doesn't have any supplementary skills like reduced cooldowns or increased cooldowns or any of those sort of things that you can say, well, she's weak affinity, but at least she can do this. She's a straight up nuker, and she's not going to nuke well against 5 very hard, very difficult defensive based Spirit Affinity champions in the game. So are you going to build her? Probably not. I think if you need a nuker by the time you get her, I would highly recommend it, but chances are you're not going to need that nuker. How would I change her to make her usable in this game? It's usually what I go with at the very end. This is the most simple change I've ever given, I think, for any champion ever. I want this to be a 1-turn cooldown, 1 turn, so it just always happens. I don't think that makes it overpowered. Veil isn't as big as... Veil in this condition, a nuking champion with Veil is not over the top. But that's not the change. I would like to see that irrelevant. Her kit is fine. She buffs herself. She gets an extra turn. She hits all enemies. She gets extra turn or turn meters. That's amazing. And this hits very hard for an A1, meaning that extra turn is actually worth something, which so many champions that have extra turns, it's like, well, what now? This hits hard. and can place a weaken. So very strong A1 to couple with that possible extra turn or that turn meter to get her to cycle through. How do I make her more usable for the end game and late game user, especially those low spend free to play for a free login champion? Change her affinity to magic or spirit. The reality is that Knight's Rev is so hard as it is because when you look at the options you have, especially outside of legendaries, some really good legendaries, especially the ones they've added, very strong. When you look at this crew, it's very hard to justify using Crypt Witch, Pitiless One, Necro Hunter. I know people have, don't at me. In order to be your nuker to get you through the waves. Miscreated Monster has an issue of buffs. Those buffs make the Valkyries activate, and you can steal his ally protect on the boss level, which is the worst thing you want to do. The last thing you want to have happen. Now you've got a bunch of support champions. Sinesha can be built to nuke, but really in this particular case, she's a good healer, plus she's Force Affinity. All the Force Affinity champions are at a disadvantage, especially the nuking ones, because of the Valkyrie Martyr. And then you've got a couple of very niche, very ticky-tacky, Titus and Deathless. They both have some special mechanic that allows them to activate under very certain conditions, but not the conditions you want during Knight's Revenant. And then you've got Faceless, and Faceless is the one that everyone likes to build. I've even used Whisper in the Knight's Rev 21. Much like Faceless, if you can get her to survive, she's amazing, but you just have to get her to survive, and that's not what you need. Lady Eresh could be the answer for people that don't have Faceless, don't have Whisper, or have them but need a nuker to help them get through. I have Solus. Solus is my nuker. If I didn't have that legendary champion, I would still be struggling getting through this. Now, there are more options like Gaius and Thea, but these are all champions, Tomb Lord. If you don't have them, the legendaries, what do you have? And I think the options are limited. If Lady Eresh were either Spirit or preferably even Magic Affinity, that would make her a viable option in Knight's Revenant 21, and I think it would make, even in by the time you get her so far down the road, I think it would help a lot of free-to-play players, low-spend players, getting a free Magic Affinity champion that can actually do damage. I can't believe the words are coming out of my mouth. We need another Magic Affinity nuker, but in this particular case, I think that is the only change you need to make for her to be viable in this game. So, what change would I make? Make her Magic Affinity, and then I think she's useful in this game. Those are all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful to you for the new free login champion, or one of the newest. I guess there's newer ones after her, but the newest login champion that I've received, just got it last night, Lady Eresh. I want to thank you for watching the video. Most importantly, please be kind, be safe. We'll see you in the next one.